Hey, how's it going?
Good.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
That's a good time.
Got room for more.
Let's do this. Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen! It is October 18th, 2020. It is season 4, episode 42. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Vi La Bianca.
Hey, V, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. We missed you last week.
Yeah, you had a great guest host on though this last time.
There was a meme that was going around this last week of Thomas wanting to
Butt fiddle his way to Narnia. Yeah, I caught that one.
I enjoyed it. That was fun. Hearing him say that, let's be very specific about what we're enjoying. So you got to watch your sister's wedding.
I did, yeah. Last week I wasn't here because my little sister was getting married and live streaming it. I couldn't be there in person because of COVID, but I wanted to make sure I was there as much as I could be and seeing it happen in real time. And I was just on the couch in my apartment sobbing and just like, oh, my little sister. It's all grown up. So yeah, she is now on her honeymoon and they're really excited. It's good. It's good.
I'm really, really happy to hear it. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, any other news this week?
Any other news this week? Not really. It's been a pretty slow week, at least in the world of YouTube.
It has.
Yeah.
It has. I think so, at least. I know that I've been focusing on work and all of that. So, as always, this is the high point of the week. I absolutely enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
Before we dive into calls, we have a couple of regular announcements. Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. If you like the show, you want to support us, please consider donating. Actually, if you donate now, on YouTube, 100% of what gets received goes directly to the nonprofit, which is different from other YouTubers who get about 50%.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal.
LLC coming in for the win.
Right. And then on top of that, you can also become a patron. Consider going to patreon.com/talkheathen to me, where we thank our top 5 patrons 2/3 of the way through the episode. And we will do that again. I always say this. I've got it right up here on the screen, and I will refresh it right before it's time. So if you want to hear your name read live today, go to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. We do have a couple of callers on the line. We don't have enough religious callers. Seems to be a pattern. We need to do something.
Maybe we're doing our
this.
job. Maybe there are just fewer religious people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think that's the case.
That's not the case.
If you are a religious person who wants to talk about what you believe and why, or you believe something that we would call woo, right? If you believe in some pseudo spirituality that you want to call in and talk about, tell us.
If you think the Enneagram is real, for example.
Oh my gosh, we were listening to that this morning. Do you want to
Yeah.
people
So my YouTube suggestions brought up this podcast by I think her name is Elisa Childers. She's a Christian podcaster, and the title of the episode is the Enneagram a Trojan horse in the church? And she's talking with this expert, and by expert,
she wrote a book.
She wrote a book. She did research and wrote a book, which apparently makes you an expert. And I'm not being elitist about that, but when you're doing research into a subject and you say someone is an expert, that comes with certain expectations. So clarification there. The actual substance of this podcast was amazing to me. Absolutely, I was laughing. I was jumping up and down with delight. It was beautiful. So they are complaining that the Enneagram comes from very kind of like mystical, occult roots, as they say. And they're like, well, there's no scientific proof for it. It doesn't pass tests in terms of like, is this an accurate assessment with predictable outcomes? All of these like scientific things. And they're like, and for this reason, and also because demons, this is a bad thing for Christians to do. And the most mind-blowing part of this is that they are using things like, oh, well, the reason people think the Enneagram works is because of Barnum statements, and because when you hear something about yourself that you like, you kind of gravitate towards that. And then when you put effort into learning about something and you like it, then you start thinking it's true, and then you look at experiences through the lens of that thing, and that seems to back up your belief. So they're explaining the Enneagram quite well in terms of this is why personality tests are kind of, dubious in terms of their scientific accuracy, and this is what we say about a lot of religious experiences. And then they turn around.
That's a little close to home.
And then they turn around and they're like, and so the Bible says that we should reject the Enneagram because it is from fallen angels or something like that. And just the cognitive dissonance of that is, it was beautiful. It was lovely.
It was pretty amazing.
So if you have thoughts about the Enneagram, call in.
I remember they were talking about their, you're relying on your experience. You're relying on your own experience. And really what you should be doing is looking for evidence and not just relying on your own anecdotal experience. And it's like, wait, you're so close. You're so close. Please, just a little bit more. Yeah. All right. Before we dive into calls, I do want to put the number out there. I said that we need religious, theist, or callers, but I didn't even say the number. Consider calling 512-991-9242. That's 512-991-9242. Or if you want to call toll-free online, you can go to tiny.cc/call-th.
Say that 3 times fast.
Tiny.cc/call-th, tiny.cc/call-th. Or you can read that at the bottom third of the screen. Ha! How about that?
That was only twice, but all right, we're good.
Fine. You ready to dive into calls?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's talk to Jimmy in Canada. Jimmy, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today?
Hi, I would like to talk about what I perceive to be a dishonest use of the term atheist.
Okay.
I believe in your community, but specifically by you guys.
Okay. What do you define as dishonest? Let's see if we're, let's make sure we agree to terms before we talk about terms.
Atheism has consistently been defined as philosophically denial.
Sorry, Jimmy.
Sorry, I was talking in English.
Jimmy, stop. I wanted to ask what your definition of dishonest is. That way we can compare it against our definition and move on from there.
It's misusing a term to mean something that it doesn't mean, at least in philosophy, right?
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. That sounds like prescriptivism. And for people who don't know what prescriptivism is, do you want to?
Sure. Well, there are 2 main branches of linguistic philosophy, Jimmy, where you will have prescriptivists, which say that certain words have certain meanings and those meanings are prescribed and you cannot deviate from those meanings legitimately. And then there are descriptivists, which say that words are used to describe things and definitions thereby can change based on what you're using the word for. So that's very basic. A lot more goes into both of them, but it sounds from what you're saying that you might be a prescriptivist and you think that words have one meaning and one meaning only?
No, I don't think words have one meaning and one meaning only. But when we're debating philosophy, right, what it seems to be to misuse a term to mean something that it hasn't actually meant when we're talking about philosophy, right? Like if I were to misuse the term Hegelian to refer to the Jehovah's Witness tradition and then just argue that no, what's happening here is you're a prescriptivist, right? You've consistently used the term atheist in debates and philosophical debates, not just some arbitrary things, right? Wherein you misuse the term to refer to lack of belief, which it doesn't refer to, right? What you, again, I don't mean to sound accusatory, but what's going on is I think that we're deviating, right, from the established position, whereas you're avoiding the burden of proof, because atheism for a long time has been the negation of the proposition. And now we're seeing this misdefinition that's not a proposition at all, but some I don't take a position on theism, but I like belief type of thing that is really agnosticism, right? So I don't know why you would continue to do that.
Sure, because we're talking to people who, what's most important is that we understand. I'm stuttering. Give me a second to take a breath. What's important is that we understand what the other person means when they're communicating. So if you refused to take our definition, but you wanted to continue to have the conversation and we agreed that we were going to use your definitions, then we would be talking about agnosticism then, if that's the case, and we would be moving on from there. Would you agree with me on that? That what's important is that we agree on, we understand what the other person is talking about? Because I think really dishonesty isn't necessarily misuse. I'd like to push back and hear me out on this. I think that we can add a little bit more to that definition. How about the deliberate misuse of something in order to confuse or to deceive? Right. And I think
that makes sense. But I of course cannot guess what someone's intention is, right? I cannot know whether you were trying to be dishonest on purpose or simply. I'm just saying what I'm seeing, right? There's a constant misdefinition and turn away, not from my definition, but what historically has been atheist, right? We know what state atheism means in the context. It's a state that officially mandates that it's, it officially adheres to the proposition that gods don't exist. Whereas when we introduce this new definition where it says atheism is simply, I'm going to withhold beliefs until you give me evidence, meanings like atheist philosophers, state atheism lose their meaning. So
can I ask a question, Jimmy? Because it seems like what you're moving towards is this idea that words have to have history behind them. And my question is, how far back do we need to go in order to find the true definition of a word? Because back in ancient Rome, Christians were considered atheists because they only believed in one God and disbelieved in the pantheon. So are you saying that atheists historically and accurately should be called Christians?
No, what I'm saying is we have to go to today's philosophical definition, right?
No, you weren't saying that. You said historically. And so my question is, how far back do we have to go to find the definition of a word? Because as I'm sure you know, as I hope you know, words change consistently and constantly. And with the invention of the internet, even faster than they had before. So I guess if you're going to rely on history, if you're going to rely on tradition, then you need to define your terms and set that expectation for us.
Well, what terms do I have to define? Go to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy today and see what the definition of atheism is. And let's see if the definition you use is consistent with the definition that's being used and is still being used in philosophical circles.
So Jimmy, is that hold on. Are you saying that we're not discussing philosophy?
You are discussing philosophy.
Okay, so would you consider our circle a philosophical circle?
I would consider it, yeah.
Okay, so I think that I could probably make a very strong case that you're gatekeeping a word.
Okay, so the problem that's going on here is that in a philosophical definition, right, we are resorting to some folksy definition of atheist that really doesn't mean anything. It's just agnosticism, but with some nuances. And
no words mean anything, not intrinsically. We decide what words mean, and we come right out and say at the beginning of every conversation about atheism, this is how we define atheist. So it's not dishonest. We are coming right out and saying, hey, this is how we define this term. If you don't agree to how we define it, we don't have to have a conversation about it. But we're putting it out there, and no one word means any one thing intrinsically.
Yeah, I think I might be able to help a little bit. Jimmy, can I try maybe looking at this a different way and see if you agree?
Okay.
So when I said dishonest, right, the way I defined it is your definition with just a little bit more, with the intent to deceive or to, right? So I think that you can have an honest person and a dishonest tactic.
Yeah.
Somebody who does not mean to be deceitful, but whose approach is dishonest in the way that it is formulated in order to deceive or otherwise kind of break down that conversation instead of having it. So what's interesting is I think in the way that I've thought about this argument before, I've never actually taken it as a, hey, you people on Talk Heathen are being, intentionally dishonest people. But I would think that, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think that you're stating that you think it's a dishonest approach or a dishonest tactic.
Yeah, I do think it's a dishonest tactic. I should have made that clear. I don't know. I can't read someone's intentions. There is a good possibility. There are some atheists that are intentionalists and others simply fall into this trap. I've spoken, for example, with David Silverman, and he seems to believe what he pushes, but he just doesn't realize the dishonest tactics, right? So I don't think he's being dishonest when he uses a bad definition of atheism. I think he is genuinely confused. I can't guess that. You, right? I just don't want you that much. I don't know.
So first off, starting off with the affirmation, hey, I think you are honestly approaching this conversation is a great way to prevent that backfire effect. So cheers to that. But from there, and I am saying but from there, I really don't. What matters to me is that we're having an honest conversation with each other. If you want to define what we call atheism using a different word, I'll meet you where you are so we can have the conversation, because the conversation is far more important. And I think
I agree. But
and here's the thing. Well, hold on just a second. The problem is, I think that it could be a dishonest tactic until we reach that point. If we go, hey, what's important is that we understand each other's definitions so that we can have a useful conversation. It can no longer be called a dishonest approach or the people within it dishonest. What's important is that we're meeting where we both understand what those words are so that we can continue to have a meaningful conversation.
Yeah. But the reason why these definitions matter to me, right, is because it becomes a completely different conversation. Like, for example, I am a theist. I'm actually a Christian. So if someone, and what theist means is a proposition that God or gods exist. So
no, that's not accurate. That is not what theist means. A theist means you believe a God exists. A theist is a discussion about your personal belief in gods, not a proposition about an ontological statement. You might buy into the ontological statement, gods exist, but if you say you're a theist, that doesn't mean that gods exist. If you say you're a theist, that means you believe gods exist. Let's just be clear. That's the definition.
When you say believe, I believe in a proposition that gods exist. Thus, I affirm that proposition, right?
Okay, that is closer to the mark than you were before.
So that's what I said, right? You interrupted me for no reason. What I said is atheism is a proposition that gods exist. A theist is someone who accepts this proposition or believes this proposition, right? Now, if someone comes and tells me that they are a theist, what this means is that person is denying this proposition. Now, that is much different than what you believe atheism to be, which is not denying the proposition, but simply lacking belief until further proof is demonstrated. It's a completely different conversation.
No, it's not. It's not.
I'm talking in English. Can I finish my point?
No, it's not your show.
No, we're going to have a conversation here, and I'm saying that I don't agree with that definition, and so we're going to have a conversation about that definition, or you can not continue the conversation. It's up to you. What do you want to do?
It's not a conversation if I can't get a word in, right?
So let's try and refocus here. Jimmy?
Okay.
I want to, number one, be absolutely clear, right? We're trying to prevent the conversation from moving in 500 different directions. And I'm sure you know what a gish gallop is. Yeah? Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. So if I think, no, it's okay. I think we've developed the skill to jump in immediately where we know that there's going to be an issue. That way we don't let the conversation take 5 different roads and we can't, go in on them. So don't take that personally. It is the approach that we're taking because of the format that we're in. That said, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I guess I just don't care. I don't know. I'm trying to summon the fucks, but it sounds like you understand what we mean. We understand what we mean. And we're able to listen and to engage with each other using the definitions that the other person's using so that we can effectively have a conversation and not talk past each other. The appeal to saying that we'll be talking past each other is only the case if we're not willing to listen and understand what each other's definitions are. And if somebody's willing to do that or not willing to do that, if somebody's going to say, no, you have to use my definitions or else, they're not worth talking to. because then they just want to talk past you. And I think that is a dishonest approach.
No, I have no problem with that. I mean, I have no problem with you saying it's just the understanding that as a theist, right, it becomes a completely different conversation. Because if you are someone who lacks belief, not someone who denies the proposition that God exists, but simply someone who lacks belief in the proposition and is withholding his opinion until he is personally convinced, for me, that changes everything, because I don't know how to argue then, because all you're telling me at that point, which, am I summarizing the position correctly, by the way? Am I being correct in saying that you don't deny the proposition that God exists? You're just saying that I'm withholding position or belief until further proof is demonstrated, right?
See, that's where I was going to jump in and make sure we were on the same page. So thank you for asking. That was very considerate of you. Are you a Bigfootist? Do you accept the proposition that Bigfoot exists?
I don't take a position on it.
So you don't accept the position that Bigfoot exists?
No, I don't take a position on it.
What is the difference?
Well, the difference is that if I take a position that Bigfoot doesn't exist, I have evidence that he doesn't. If I don't take
No. I'm not saying he doesn't exist. I'm saying, do you believe that he does exist? Yes or no?
I see no reason to accept that. But I don't take a position on it.
You are an Bigfootist because you reject the assertion that Bigfoot exists. That is different than saying Bigfoot does not exist. But you are still an Bigfootist.
No, but I still do not affirm the opposite, right?
Neither do we.
Familiar. Okay, so then the conversation becomes about what personally convinces you or doesn't, which is quite different.
Exactly. That is what we talk about on this show.
Okay, but do you realize that that's completely different than a conversation about the evidence that God doesn't exist? Like, for example...
Well, it's an epistemological conversation and not an ontological one inherently, but sure, those would be different conversations. But one is not the only option when you're talking to an atheist. You can talk about what would convince that atheist, and you can talk about the facts and the ontological discussion as well. It's not an either-or situation. We can talk about both.
But I'm not seeing how it's interesting to simply find out individual atheists and what would convince them, right? I mean, there is nothing objective about what would convince somebody. I know people that aren't convinced that the Earth is round. So
No, it's okay. I actually wanted to tie into that because I think you're taking an approach that, for the most part, I agree with, and that is what is getting the most use out of this definition so that we can have a useful conversation.
Obviously, that's the whole point behind it.
And so here's the thing. Here's what convinced me otherwise, and that is that a theist position, right, the theist position that a god or gods exist, has become so nebulous. And just watching our show, I'm sure you could agree that there are lots of people with drastically different definitions of what God is, that to take a hard stance against any definition of a God, even if you haven't heard of it, would be nonsensical. And so I think that to apply that definition means that that word becomes kind of useless. And I do think that if we're going to have a nuanced conversation, that when we do make those words, mean those specifically slightly different things, then we're able to kind of differentiate it. And I have an example for you. So what is the difference between, do you remember I was talking about this the other day, profane
and vulgar,
mm-hmm. Right? Profanity and vulgarity.
Profanity and vulgarity, they're synonyms, I guess.
Well, that's the thing, is they're synonyms most of the time unless you want to have a nuanced conversation. When you want to have that nuanced conversation, profanity is a swear word, a cuss word that has to do with religion. It is the profane. And so it is, God damn it, right? That's profanity. Vulgarity has to do with your body. And there are specific, cuss words about bodies. And so generally when you want to use those words synonymously. It doesn't matter if you call it profanity or vulgarity. But if you're having a conversation specifically about that topic, then bringing in the nuance involved means that you can have a more detailed conversation. And so in saying, hey, you know what, the way you're defining atheist is the way that I'm defining agnostic. Well, we want to move away from using those synonymously. And I think you do too. The important thing is that we just make sure that we're both using it or understanding it the same way so we can have it. Other than that, I honestly grow tired of the debate, because I think that what's important is that we just understand each other so we can have that conversation in the first place. And if you agree, I don't know if there's a reason to continue.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. But what I'm saying after that is, no, I agree with you. There's no doubt about it. But then the question becomes, I mean, let's use whatever term you want to use. Let's not use atheist or whatever you want to use. If that's the position, then I don't see why the claim is exclusive. Because, see, the interesting thing about atheists, right, is that either atheism is true or Christianity is true, but both can't be true at the same time, right? And this has been an understood dichotomy. What becomes interesting about that definition, even if you want to say it's correct, is that it's not exclusionary. God can be true, and your position that you lack belief is also true. So it's not
that's actually that's not a true dichotomy. It's close, but it's not.
Sorry?
No, that's okay. What you used as a definition. And then I know we have a lot of other callers, but just, did you want to dive in? Because I saw you make the face that you know exactly what I was going to say.
That isn't the dichotomy. It's atheism is true, or any number of hundreds of thousands of religions are true.
Right, so atheism is
It's
true.
not a dichotomy of Christian or atheist.
Right. So the opposite would be the negation of the statement. So
right.
Atheism is true or not atheism is true. Christianity is true or not Christianity is true.
And I think this is one of the biggest reasons that Jimmy may have called in, and I don't want to put words in your mouth so you can, come back at me with this. But if your mindset is either atheism is true or Christianity is true, all I have to do is disprove atheism and then Christianity is automatically true. And that is not what's happening here.
No, not my position at all. I misspoke. I should have said either theism is true or atheism. It's just the word that comes to mind. So the thing that, now I don't want to take much time. I'm just going to say this minute, and then I'm going to just, let others talk, because I know other people are waiting. I'm just saying, right, that the dichotomy was either atheism is true or theism is true, but both can't be true at the same time. Now, what is interesting about the position is that when you bring personal beliefs into it, then it's not a dichotomy anymore. Like, atheism is, under that definition, is true, whether or not theism is true, right? Because atheism describes some personal feeling that can occur for any reason.
So does theism. We're talking about words that mean belief in things. You can say a God is true or a God is real or God is not real. That's a dichotomy. That has nothing to do with the belief in a God or no God, which is theism versus atheism. You're spot on. Atheism is about the belief in whether or not a God exists. So is theism. So theism is not an ontological statement and atheism an epistemological statement. They're both talking about epistemology here.
So can I bookend this for both of you, please? What I'd love to say is, Jimmy, when you first called in, you responded to me hopping in by being like, "Oh crap, Eric's going to railroad me. I need to stand up and say, hey, you're interrupting me." But when I jumped in, I wanted to make sure that we were talking about the same thing. And I feel like each time we jumped in, both of us, well, all three of us, we all came to a better understanding of the conversation. And I appreciate you for that. I appreciate you for listening, holding on, and then recognizing, hey, we're trying to reach this together.
Well, okay. Thank you for the time, and I'll probably take off now. Take care, and maybe we can speak again some other time.
Sounds good, man. I'm going to be looking for you, Jimmy. And what's important to me is I want to see you having conversations other than just definitions. Like, there are so many better conversations to have. I really, really want to find that. I really want to see that.
Okay. Take care now.
Take it easy, man. I don't know. You
can't call in about definitions and then routinely use bad definitions the entire argument.
I agreed, and then when he stopped and listened, he went, "Hey, you know what? I agree with that."
Well, he did that for you.
He did that with you too.
We'll have to watch this back.
We are going to watch this back. Okay.
All right.
Did that fly over? Okay. I will watch
All
this
right. We will jump in again. Let's talk to... can we talk to Chris in California?
Sure, absolutely. I do want to really quick jump in that somebody in the live chat said that, so does that mean holy shit is both vulgar and profane? Yes. Chris in California, you're live with Eric and V.
Hey guys, thanks V. You're thinking of me. Jeez, I feel special.
Sounds good. What can we help you with today?
Okay, I don't know, Jimmy. Okay, forget about it. The definitions. We did our definitions. I'm fine. I can be agnostic with you guys, and that's what I am.
All right.
There was some sort of mention of super spirituality. Is that what somebody said? Or hey, come in and talk about this and blah blah blah. I think.
Woo. Anything spiritual or woo related.
If you did or not.
I just imagined Superman doing Reiki.
Where I'm going.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Oh, you said super spirituality, and I couldn't imagine. I'm thinking of like X-Men, but like phrenology edition. But go ahead. What do you believe and why?
When you get down to exact beliefs, 100%, there's only a few things. But so the spirituality is a lower percentage, but it's probably over 50. And so what the spirituality would be is there's more to the physical thing than what we're doing here. And it's a spiritual dimension in my mind. I have no proof of any of this. I have experiences, some a little bit with spirits, maybe here and there, three over my life. Psychedelic drugs gives you a tap into something. That's great. But at the same time, deja vu is a tap across some sort of dimension. Psychic.
Ooh.
I was just thinking about you, and I called. Somebody said, "Oh, I just thought about you." Well, I transmitted with my brain. We only use 10% of our brain. There's all kinds of things.
Okay, hold on.
That's my thing.
Well, there are so many different directions we can go here. I do want to just briefly touch on the deja vu thing because I just learned what that is, and it's really interesting. So for a very long time, I also was like, deja vu, what does that mean? And like, what could that be telling us about our interactions with reality? I've had deja vu all the time.
Deja vu. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting. Okay.
But weirdly, it happens a lot more like after I get high. Like back when I was in Portland, the week after, I would get a lot more deja vu. But here's the thing. What it actually is your brain accidentally filing something in long-term memory instead of short-term memory. So it's literally like a filing error in your brain where it's something that you're experiencing gets bumped to the wrong part of your brain. And so you think that you remember it from a past time, but actually your brain just misfiled it, which is fascinating.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And that kind of makes sense with the whole
That actually, it does. It does. I mean, where there's workings on some other dimension, who knows? But anyway, yeah. I mean, but. That sounds like a good.
I guess this idea that we're transmitting, that there's some kind of medium that exists between space and that we're all tapping into. I did some psychedelics trying to tap into that as well. To the best of my. I'm sorry. Say again.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, it's fun.
That's a fake way to do it. It's a fake way to fake news.
So here's the thing: is I think it's all fake news. I think that it's a very wishful thinking kind of thing, but I don't think that there's evidence to suggest that
are you
we exist outside of our brains.
100% that it's all fake news, Gareth? Are you convinced 100% of that?
I'm not convinced 100% of anything.
Good. You're the man.
I think I'm man. But so let's just ask you that question again, because I don't think that actually gets you out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Out of what? Go ahead.
So I'm not convinced that it exists. And so when I approach something, I apply a degree of confidence to it. And so when that degree of confidence raises high enough, then I'm accepting that as true. I have a very, very low degree of confidence in your claim. And what we want to know is if we should be bumping that degree of confidence up. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why should we believe you?
It's your own experience. If you don't have a similar experience and you don't follow me from that perspective, then go ahead, do what you do.
But doesn't the truth matter to you?
The truth. Okay, define the truth.
That which corresponds to reality.
The truth matters to me. Yes, it does.
Okay, cool. So one of us likely has a closer bead on the truth than the other when we're discussing this spiritual realm or collective unconscious, the way, whichever way you're describing it.
Are you implying that it's you, Eric?
Am I implying that what's me?
One of us has a better idea of what is true regarding spirituality.
Oh, well, approaching this discussion, yeah, I think it's true for me, and I think you think it's true for you. Now, we should be able to approach that and bring our evidence to the table and try and figure out, okay, where does the evidence lead? And then both of us go in the direction of where the evidence leads. Yeah, absolutely.
I could share specific experiences. I don't know if that's worth it.
Well,
I don't know if I want to. I mean, I had 3 maybe experiences that were of what you might call a ghost. The voice in my son's little on his speaker, and while he was on baby monitor, and it sounded like his grandfather who had just died, who said actual words. That was one. So we can leave it at that. But you know, anyway, go ahead.
Let's see. So your response is, hey, I have anecdotal evidence. You are providing anecdotal evidence, your personal testimony. You know, it's the same thing a lot of religious people do is they provide their testimony. Yeah. Say again?
Oh, I was pushed, man. But that's okay. No, I'm sorry. It's your show. Let's do it.
That's okay. So here's the thing. You can provide lots of different evidences. You can provide different types of evidence. The evidence that you went towards was anecdotal evidence. There are other types of evidence. I didn't push you into anecdotal evidence. That's what you provided. Do you have evidence that's not anecdotal?
You're right, man. You're right.
Okay. So do you have other evidence that No reason to apologize.
Not other than the other things I mentioned, and I could dig, but like you say, it's not going to go anywhere. You know, it's nothing I can demonstrate to you.
Well, here's the thing: it should, because if there's not good evidence for a thing, I think that it should matter to you.
It's good to ponder about the issues. Yeah, what's that?
I think it should matter to you. I think that if it should convince you, it should convince me, and if it doesn't, then I need more evidence, or you need to increase your investigation of it. I want you to have a close connection to what is true about the world. I want you to have the best tools possible to look at something and go, okay, does this belief correspond to reality? You know, I want your epistemology to get you towards true statements about ontology. Mm-hmm. And when you say it's just your belief, man, or, you know, if you're not approaching it from my direction, then you're not going to come to the same conclusion, then we're no longer having the same ought. We're no longer approaching this and going, hey, we should have that as the goal. It doesn't sound like you have that as the goal.
Eric, can you please define ontology for me? I've looked it up here and there, but what does it mean? Because you guys use it all the time, and I'd like to kind of tell you what my ontology is. What's ontology?
Yeah, so ontology is a discussion about things that are, things that exist, why things, like how, not how things exist, but like the makeup of the universe. So saying something like God exists is an ontological statement, right? You're making a claim about the universe and reality. So that's what we mean when we say ontological. When we talk about epistemological, what that is how we know things and how we come to conclusions. So kind of the ethos on this show is we need to have a firm epistemology first and understand how we know things and how to best come to conclusions before we can make ontological claims.
Oh, okay. Why not? Okay, so epistemologically, I believe I am set in what I am. I don't know.
You know what?
I'm not sure what we're talking about now here.
It's okay, Chris.
It's okay.
Go back and listen to the call. Those are topics that took me years to get, to work with, and then to apply. And so go back and listen to this a couple times and see kind of where you fall on those things. That's the great thing about this being a YouTube show is you can go back, you can check it out and give us a call back.
Yeah.
Hey, I will call back, but if you give me like half a minute to summarize here, I'll let you know what I got out of it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Epistemology, I have set. I'm set in my beliefs and my belief system and how to come about them. Ontologically is what I feel about what exists and to some doesn't exist, I suppose. And I'm fairly set in that too. As far as trying to convince somebody of it, I've given up on that with everything. And if I say the T word and the B and the KH words, I'm not supposed to on your thing. But I gave up on trying to figure them out either.
KH.
Coming up here in a couple weeks.
No idea.
KH. I love her. Anyway, and besides all that, I'll watch most of the show, man. You guys are great. I love you.
Okay.
We're going to be like
I'm
mulling
stumped,
over what
yeah.
KH is.
Don't worry. I'm sure the live chat will inform us.
Yes.
Take it easy, man. Thank you for calling in.
Okay. Take care, man. Bye.
Close. I think that we would summarize the ontological claim as, hey, there is something outside of ourselves that we're all tapping into.
Right.
The statement about the realm that he was discussing is the ontological claim.
Right.
What you think about it is the epistemological claim.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I'm super.
KH.
Yeah. Okay. The live chat is.
Oh, B or KH. Oh, we're not allowed to endorse people. Biden and Kamala Harris.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what? A lot of
Okay.
people were wondering, what are the limits for this show?
We cannot officially endorse anybody who is running for office. So if you want to in the live chat, we can't stop you.
And also, because we just made life super difficult for our mods, we can't endorse a candidate. That does not mean that we have to refrain from statements about policies, about positions.
Right.
We can make all of those statements.
I believe weed should be legal.
Sure.
I'm voting accordingly. You should too. All right.
Yeah, okay, let's go with that.
Richard, maybe?
I'm totally, yep. You know
All
why?
right.
I think we're like psychically connected.
I
and
think
we're just
that's
on
what
the
that
same
is. We're
page.
just tapped into the same frequency
Yeah,
here.
on the same wavelength. Richard,
All right.
what did you want to talk about?
Hi there. I'd like to talk about a couple little things here. I've been listening to the show, and I'm just kind of curious. Okay, why? So the atheist position isn't to actually. Basically, the atheist position is not making a claim that there isn't a God. Correct?
I don't think it can.
There are certainly people who use it in that way, and that is one way to use it. It's just that's not what we mean when we say the word.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Why can't the atheist position be that though? Why can't it be that it's making the claim that there isn't a God?
Sure, because we're not the arbiters of. Oh, go ahead. Say again.
Well, okay. Have you seen that Carl Sagan video? He makes a good example, like with an apple, dropping an apple down on a table with these little cut out pieces of circles and squares and triangles, like a flatlander world, just flat. And we as human beings, we're living in this third dimension. So we're supposedly supposed to understand that there's more dimensions, and there's how many dimensions? Who knows how many?
Yes, the ant and the piece of paper and all of that.
Yeah. So Carl Sagan, he's got this apple in his hand. He starts dropping it lower to the table so that the flatlanders there can see what it would be like to see an actual apple or whatever.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come down into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And to them, they're like, what the hell is it? They don't know what it is. And they don't know what it is. They can't describe it. There's no evidence to show what it is. It doesn't look like an apple to them. So if we're living in 3 dimensions, and there's more dimensions out there, evidence is irrelevant, I think, to actually have to, I don't think that,
evidence,
prove that there's evidence is relevant, really.
Well, here's the thing. What makes evidence relevant? What is our goal? We've talked about epistemology. We've talked about ontology. It sounds like we're moving into axiology. What is the goal here?
Truth, right? It's true. It's fact, like a fact.
And so,
if I could show you something like in my hand, like if I could show something to somebody, I'm gonna say, here, I have this right here in my hand. Here, look, here it is. And it's like, okay, there's the evidence, right?
Yeah, the time to believe that would be when the evidence is there. So you asked a question earlier, and I do want to answer it.
Yeah.
You said, how come it can't be that hard atheist kind of, that no gods exist? And again, you're talking to 2 people who are just people.
No, what I was at.
We are not the ACA, although I think the ACA would back us on this, and we're not the Pope of atheism or anything like that.
No, he's a patron.
Right.
Yeah. That said,
Why don't?
well, I'll tell you. Because I've talked to so many people with such disparate definitions of God that I think to make a hard no claim, like I'll give you an example, Richard. Somebody has called in and said, hey, I believe that God is the universe. Those words are synonymous. That God does not have any magical properties, that God does not think as a separate being, that God is just the universe. So for me to say, hey, that God claim is like every other God claim and does not exist, just, that's painting with a brush that I think it just can't. I think that you have to listen to the claim and evaluate the claim and then come to that conclusion, which is why we push for the definition that we do, because it pushes people to listen and then engage from there.
It's like a choice of words,
and it's important. So,
Catholic.
If you believed that God was an elf that lived in your... What I was going to say is, if you believe that God is an elf that lived in your butt, but you could not show it, and scans couldn't show it, and you investigated thoroughly and it's not there, then you can make the hard claim, okay, that definition of God does not exist, and then you can make that hard.
Well, to me it seems like atheists are being very careful what their position is. Okay, very careful. And to me, if I think about how if I go back, if we go right back to that, the atheists strictly they're not making a claim that there isn't a God. They're just not accepting, or they're rejecting the claim that there is a God. And so what I'm thinking is, well, why don't they make the claim that there isn't a God?
Well, we do, depending on the claim.
Right.
There isn't one.
Well, no,
there's no evidence for that.
Richard, I just gave you an example. Well,
there's also the opposite of evidence. You know what I mean? There's
no.
In other words, okay.
No, you can have evidence and you can have bad evidence. It's still a type of evidence, but I think we're kind of moving in different directions here. Do you get that we just gave you an example? You can't say, no, there's no way to prove it's not. No, it depends on your claim. If you claimed that this glass of water that I'm holding is God,
Right.
they're just synonyms, then I would say, okay, I accept that because I'm investigating this glass of water. I have a high degree of confidence that this glass of water exists. That is why, because God is
calling that God.
Hmm?
Right. Yeah, that's because I'm calling that God, and you say, okay, well then that's God. But it's,
exactly
Right.
that doesn't matter. Yeah, it's a glass of water, is what it is.
well,
But,
and that's
okay, here, let me say this. Okay, so that there's a difference between taking a position where you are making a claim and you're also required to show evidence for that claim, and then being in the other position where the atheist is saying, well, you know, I reject that claim, but they're also not making the claim that there is no God, you know?
it depends.
Okay, so
Again, it depends, right? We just gave you an example of a time that I would agree, and I gave you an example of a time I would disagree.
Yeah, let's try it like this. I consider myself an agnostic atheist. And I know there are going to be people who are like, oh, but V, those words cannot go together. And I think they do. But if you disagree, you can call in. So for me, I am agnostic about the idea of any potential God existing. There could be some deistic universe type thing that we don't have evidence for, we can never prove or disprove. It might or might not exist. And that's fine. And like, I'll admit, we don't have the evidence to prove or disprove that. So I'm agnostic about it. Doesn't impact me, doesn't impact my life. It can exist. I don't really fucking care. But if you say, well, the Christian God exists, and I don't know what kind of theist you are, Richard, so we can get into this if you would like. If you tell me the Christian God exists of the classical, version, omnipresent, omnibenevolent, or maximally great, however you want to define that, I can be a strong atheist about that particular claim and say, I will make the claim that particular God does not exist. But then, of course, I have to back that up with my own evidence, and my evidence would be the laws of logic, right? Or historical evidence that contradicts the claims in the Bible. And then we could have that discussion. Right. But yeah, it really is individual to the person. So we can talk about how we personally use these definitions, but it's going to change regardless, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, I agree. I see what you're saying there. Yeah, it depends. There's some things to it. I know that Exodus 21 is brought up many times and everything. But see, back a long time ago, back in those days, there were no banks around. There was no banks. The only way that somebody could pay somebody back was if they were, to do services for people.
Oh, why did we move to slavery in the Bible? I'm sorry, Richard. This is like a hard left turn into slavery. If we want to. I'm sorry.
I don't want to get into that.
Then why did you get into it?
Wait,
what?
We can. Where did that come from?
Yeah, indentured servitude. He was starting to move into indentured
servitude.
Some
of those Matt Dillahunty videos I've seen, when he's on there and he's talking about this, he's so like, when he goes off on there, he's just like, oh, would you be my slave for all this? But I think that is like, there's banks nowadays, so it's really hard for us to understand what like back then. It's just. It was a different thing. It was a totally different thing.
Richard?
The two options, you guys, in case you're listening, are banks or slavery. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That was just funny to me.
That's okay. So Richard. Richard.
Let me
hold on. Richard, you've honestly given me a really, really good place to talk about something that has been coming up in the comments for videos the last few weeks. And people say, why do they get so upset when they talk about other shows? Here's the thing. We're not those other hosts. I feel uncomfortable making a statement on behalf of someone else. And on top of that, we are hosts in and of ourselves. We would love to talk about what we are talking about, right? If we make a claim and somebody wants to call us to the table on it, absolutely. It just definitely feels like, I know we're the younger sister show of the Atheist Experience, but that doesn't mean that we should only be arbitrating what other shows are doing.
Right. We'd feel really weird talking about how anybody else saw these issues. We only speak for us.
And that said, it definitely feels
what you got.
Yeah. Like old episodes of the Atheist Experience. I remember lots of other hosts would, they get a call to AXP and it'd be like, hey, Matt said this thing. And then the other hosts who, Matt's not on that week, and they'd be like, okay, call when Matt's there. I want you to have the conversation.
I mean, you guys have a different approach on the same subjects.
Now, when it comes to slavery, I agree with Matt.
Mm-hmm.
I think Matt's got a good beat on it. But give him a call on that.
It says this and that and the other.
Yeah. So
the other one thing I wanted to talk about real quick is I could describe something like, let's say you make something, right? If you made something, me or anybody else could describe it, right? It could be described what it is. Same thing with God. If God made something, anybody could describe that too.
Well, you're making an assumption. You're making an assumption there.
What's so overwhelming about that? If God made the universe, if God made the whole universe.
Yeah, that if is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, Richard. That if is doing all the heavy lifting. If God existed, then God existed, right? If God exists, then any statement about God would point towards that God, because you're predicating it on that God existing for that. If is doing so much fucking heavy lifting that I think that we have to question whether or not if is a good way to start that. So
I see what you're saying now.
But think about it.
I'm saying it. Huh?
I was going to say, think about it. I know we've got a couple of other calls we want to take, but hopefully this was a beneficial conversation for you.
Yeah, thanks for calling in, Richard.
Definitely. You guys are awesome. I will definitely call back. I hope I get lucky enough to get through again. And I didn't wait that long either. About a few minutes.
Perfect.
That's good. It was good talking to you.
Good talking to you too.
Well.
Take care. What I appreciate is that he called in right at the beginning of the show, which means that our call screeners could talk to him, pop it in the queue,
and have it ready to go.
Yeah, because we could make sure that we had enough time to talk to him. If somebody calls in late, even if they're a theist caller, that does not mean that they're necessarily going to make it to the front. So call in early. That way we can make sure we get
right. You'll see we've spent the first hour on 3-4 calls. That's a long time to talk with us if you prefer to have a longer conversation.
And we have a lot of callers who I would love to spend hours talking to.
Right.
So let's move. I really want to talk to Geno.
I know you want to talk to Geno.
Can we talk to Geno? I took Geno. Geno in California. You're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about?
So Eric, hello V. Actually, it was probably just a quick one. I think. What are your guys' opinions on free will?
As defined as how?
Like nothing's predetermined.
Do we mean like sure? There's a thing that gets a little in the way here, and maybe if we make the distinction, it'll help. So there are people who believe that we're in a deterministic universe, that everything is going to play out the way it is because that's just the way it is. And then there are other claims of determinism that are, hey, God made us this way, and either we have the option or the ability to change the things around us consciously, or we don't.
But either way, that was predetermined.
Yeah, and so we've got to make sure that we're clearly defining free will. Otherwise, we might be talking way past each other.
Also, a lot of people are like, no, it's not predetermined. Not everything is worked out ahead of time. It's all incredibly random and chaotic, which is, again, not free will. Like, we can't control chaos either. So whether we're going the very structured route in terms of, hey, everything has a plan and a purpose and is laid out and you have to follow it, or everything is chaos and nothing makes sense and things just happen randomly. Neither of those are free will, technically.
So
right, and I don't mean like. Oh, go ahead.
No. I just wanted to dive in and help us here.
Yeah. What kind of free will are we talking about?
Well, I mean the free will as in just that you have I guess it wouldn't be the ability to do something either.
Right? It kind of breaks that apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
how dare you make me think a little bit harder about
I know.
It's
I
fun.
know.
Isn't it fun? It's fun.
So many nights over good drinks with friends and about what free will is. Long story short, I don't think that free will makes any kind of sense.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so I believe it's Dennett's view of free will, and he's trying to be compatibilistic about it. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong on who I'm attributing this to. I think it's Dennett. He defines free will as the ability to do something you want to do without being impeded. That is free will. If you have a wish and you go and you can do that thing and make that thing happen, that's free will. But who gave you the wish? And can you decide on whether or not you have a desire in the first place?
Well, and also I can't breathe underwater, but I can drive a car. So depending on my wish, does that mean that, like, it just does not seem like an applicable test?
It's like free will, asterisk, 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 asterisk.
Yeah.
But no, exactly. It's a big question for sure.
And
All right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you guys make great points. And yeah, that would probably be a good definition. I think the best thing to do, I guess, is to give you, I guess, one of the examples I was thinking of, and then you guys can, because it may not even be free will now that you guys have submitted.
Sure.
Yeah.
So essentially the scenario would be that, if someone, so someone has racist thoughts, right? It's just an example. They have racist thoughts, but they never act on them. That would make them a non-racist individual, or would they still be a racist individual just because they had the thoughts?
Ooh, interesting thought. I would say that everybody is a little bit racist because we all have been coded with certain. Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. Everybody, like having racist thoughts still technically makes you a racist person, I would say. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you are a bad person, because a lot of people have been encoded with these bad thoughts that they then act against. And you can very slowly, it takes a long time. I did this myself and I'm still going through that process, redistributing those thoughts and rebuilding those neural pathways and stopping yourself and thinking new things and exposing yourself to new ideas. So that's not something that is outside of your ability to impact, but it is also not free will because you were encoded with those thoughts to begin with.
I disagree with your definition.
Okay.
I define racism as bigotry based on race. And because of that, there's an action involved in bigotry.
Interesting. Oh, that's a whole other conversation.
And so
Go ahead.
What I was going to say is you can do a racist thing. You can do a bigoted thing that is based on race and not be a racist. See, racism defined as that has a lot of clear distinctions between a thing that is racist and a person that is racist. Mm-hmm. And
there's institutionalized racism. There are various types.
And before people in the comments to like crazy degrees, there's also a discussion about whether or not there's a power dynamic required for racism. And if you want to have that conversation, fantastic. I hope that this sparked those conversations to be had. Don't at me.
Have at it. Be nice to each other.
But moving back
all that said, I'm curious where you're going with this in terms of free will.
Well, I mean, honestly, though, I think you guys actually already answered that. The one thing in the definition that you gave me, or the explanation that you gave me, was that when you say everyone's a little bit racist, everyone may have racist thoughts, I think I would probably substitute that with biased thoughts, and just to a certain degree, then it becomes, I guess, racist. Because then I guess you have to define racism. And I completely agree that everyone has biases, but I would have to disagree with you on that. Everyone has, racist, or, well, I guess I don't know how you say that, any racist thoughts at all. You know what I mean?
Well, I am generally opposed to saying you are a racist versus this is a racist thing to think or do, because then it becomes a problem of rehabilitating that thought or action as opposed to condemning the person outright. But again, we're getting into stuff that I think doesn't.
It's no longer free will. It is a conversation.
It is definitely an interesting conversation.
And it's another call that we can have with someone else that we can or might take at some point in time. But moving back to free will.
No.
Right.
Just so we can stay.
So are you saying essentially that biases are either determined or not determined?
Well, I guess you're right. We're getting a little off. The only reason I even made that distinction was just to clear up that definition. But essentially, I was saying that I do agree with you guys. So you guys already answered my question regarding free will.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, that was it for me. And unless you guys have any questions for me, that was everything.
No, there are a couple of statements in the live chat that we'll take after we're done with the call. But in the meantime, Geno, thank you for calling in. Thank you for waiting on the line. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. It was a great time. I'm going to call back. Thank you, guys.
Please do.
Take care.
Bye. Wow, we answered the free will question in like 10 minutes. We're good. Take that, Dennett and Harris.
I feel like we answered it in 2 minutes and then spent 8 minutes talking about race.
It did seem to draw out a little bit long.
Yeah.
Toward the end there.
Oh my goodness. So there are so many things when it comes to racism. And I, you know what? No, there are too many.
Yeah.
If someone wants to call in with a specific claim or a specific question about it.
You don't dive into the live chat. That's
well,
swimming in the sharks, man.
So somebody had one really good question because they're wondering, what the hell does this have to do with religion?
Uh-huh.
I'll tell you. There is a idea, at least in the Christianity that I grew up with and in a lot of religions that I've engaged with, that you are given this gift of free will by your deity, and that you're being judged based on what you do with that free will. And that's what's going to determine whether or not you get eternal paradise or eternal suffering.
Right. And it's also the reason that sin exists and
Exactly.
suffering. And it's their ace card, essentially. Well, free will.
Yeah. And so if you're trying to figure out, okay, well, my action is going to lead me to hell, but it turns out, no, you never had a choice. You're just a meat robot. Then that throws
Calvinism is true.
Okay, moving on. There are a lot of implications when it comes to religion, and it's specifically having a lot to do with people's responses. It seems like today there are a lot of meta conversations like that.
Yeah.
When it came to atheism and the definition of atheism, people were asking, what does this have to do with the claim? Well, what it has to do is with the burden of proof.
Right.
And so I've talked to plenty of Christians, and I know you have as well, and non-Christians alike, that have moved the goalposts. Okay, well, there should not be a burden on me to substantiate my claims. The burden should be on you to prove to me that I'm wrong. Well, that's why it's important for us to have this discussion. Again, it's a meta conversation that I think that we jump into, and we don't realize, hey, not everybody here, is applying their understanding, and engaging the same way. We're having this conversation. It has everything to do with religion. It has everything to do with where the burden of proof lies. It has everything to do with the claims of sin and free will. And
I like to think that's kind of what sets us apart as a show. We dive into those meta conversations and have conversations that will always be pulled out if you're debating a Christian or a theist on an issue, but might not be directly tied to the Bible or the God claim itself.
Agreed. I think as a host, I want to make sure, though, that people are latching on to why we're having it in the first place.
I like that clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? We've got some awesome callers. Holy shit! Why are all the theist callers calling in the on the back leg of the show?
Do we want to thank the patrons first so we can jump into these last few?
Absolutely. And before I thank the patrons, I do want to say, you know who you are in the live chat. I will send you $5 on PayPal to call in to tell me what the hell you mean when you say I'm not a practicing atheist. Because that is going to haunt my dreams if I don't find out. I will send you $5 on PayPal. Call. Okay, sorry. What the hell is a practicing atheist? I have no idea. What is our doctrine? Like, what are our tenets?
Do you listen to Waking Life? Not Waking
I've seen Waking Life.
Waking Up, not Waking Life. Waking Life is awesome. Do you listen religiously to Waking Up?
I don't.
Okay, then get out of here.
Not a true. But then again, I'm not a true Scotsman. Okay, so God damn it. This is where we go. I want to thank our top 5 patrons. Our top 5 patrons this week are Eric Tweet, Desert Heathen, Bethany P, Jay Friedman, and Ward Knipling. Thank you. It's your support and the support of everyone else who is contributing to the show. It's keeping us going. It's keeping the ACA putting on shows like that. We have, can we move to the crew cam? I know I'll give you a second to set it up, but we have an incredible crew, and it's because of you that we're able to do this. There they are along the bottom. There they are coming up. These are volunteers, you guys. The only reason they're able to do it is because we're accessing all of this technology that is being supported and provided by you. So thank you. They're volunteering, we're volunteering, and it's your support that's allowing us to do it. So if you want to support us, go to patreon.com/talk heathen to me. That's patreon.com/talk heathen to me. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, let's jump in again.
Are we going to Romania?
Let's go to Romania.
All right. Catanin. Catanin?
Hello.
In Romania? Hi.
Yes, I am.
There was a pronunciation guide. I appreciate it. What did you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's pretty weird, and my accent isn't really good, and my English is not so good. So please excuse me if I make some mistakes.
Sure.
No, you're good so far.
Well, I wanted to talk about the importance of God's story in the laws of every country, because
Okay.
I think the story of God is the story of love and empathy, and that's why our laws are built to bring forward our
Okay.
love and empathy, and it comes from the story of God. And
Question.
my friends are really not agreeing with me
Well, I
right now and giggling a little bit. So I wanted to talk about that.
well, question here. What's your goal? Because if the goal is to use that to back up the claim that God exists, I don't think you're going to have an easy time of doing that.
I believe in God, but I have no proof, and it's really a faith. It's not. I don't have an answer about that.
Sure.
I'm claiming that I'm sure that.
Okay.
I
No.
believe it does, but I'm not a fanatic or something like that.
Okay. Well, so let's make sure that we're drawing a distinction here. You're saying that you think that the Bible and biblical stories are exemplary of empathy, compassion, and love, and that you think that there's
Not
benefit to
all,
that.
but
Do
a lot of them are.
you think that there are other stories that are not in the Bible that are also examples of empathy, compassion, and love?
Oh, of course, yes.
Okay. So if you think that the Bible and other fictional stories can all be examples of empathy, compassion, and love, I don't see where the conversation is anymore, because what we want to know is whether or not a God exists. If it's pragmatic to go, hey, well, there's benefit here, I really don't care. I just want to know if it's true. And so wanting to call and talk about, well, I think it's useful. I don't care if it's pragmatically useful. I just care whether or not it's true. There are some really harsh truths about the world around us. We just want to know whether or not it's true.
Okay. So how do you prove it if it exists or not? Because we don't have the proof of that.
Exactly.
It's not scientifically. It's not science to say God does not exist, because we don't have the proof. We have just some modeling about the creation of the universe, and that doesn't, even if that's true, 100%, that doesn't provide the proof that God does not exist.
It depends on your definition. If you define God as something that can be measured, and you measure and it's not there, then you've proved that God doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you measure God?
Sure. So you're giving me all the cards, and I love it. So here, I'm going to define God as an interventionist God that answers all of my prayers. Right. So I have, brought this glass of water, and I love how people are speculating on whether or not it's gin in the live chat. I'm not a lush who drinks at 2 p.m, always. Anyway, so
Anybody who knows Eric knows that is not the amount of gin that Eric pours for himself.
No, yeah. Anyway, Catanin, I'm holding a glass of water, and I'm going to pray for this glass of water to boil in my hands. Now, the way I defined that God always does what I ask. Okay, I'm praying.
Yes.
God, please boil this water in my hands. Okay, it's not happening.
Well,
So the God that I defined.
And I'm praying I'm not going to die, so I'm not dying. Is that the proof that God exists?
Ah.
Oh.
I'm praying that I'm not dying, and I'm not dying. Is that the proof that God exists?
That is a great question that tells us.
It's a great counter.
Well, what it does is it shows that I have not really clearly talked about falsifiability.
Mm-hmm.
But confirmation Sure. So what is falsifiability? Falsifiability is a test or something that you can apply to determine whether or not a claim is true or is true. So in science, we don't actually have confirmation that way, but we do have, and I say we as if I am
know
science.
that because I'm actually a mathematician.
Oh,
so
cool.
I know a little bit about science. I know that is not a really good demonstration, but I'm feeling that what you said to me could be said in my perspective, and that doesn't give us any results.
Well, let me be clear.
Good results.
So the way I defined that God, I made a falsifiable claim, right? Because if that God exists, then if I pray, the water will boil. Okay, so I prayed, the water didn't boil. So the God that I defined does not exist. I created a falsifiable claim about it and then tested that and determined, okay, that God does not exist. Now, the God that you're talking about, let's do the same. Is there a falsifiable claim? That's what's important. I mean, when you say, okay, I'm praying for God to keep me alive, you understand that you can use that to prop up anything. You could use that to prop up the existence of aliens that are necessary to keep our atmosphere in place. And because of that, those aliens exist because I haven't died.
But I can say the same thing about your hypothesis about the aliens, that you pray for the aliens to boil the water, and if the water haven't boiled, there's no alien. So we're not sure about that.
No, we are. We're applying the same methodology, right? The method is, here's the falsifiable claim. Can I falsify it?
Okay,
yes,
I understand now.
Then
you say that the aliens we define like aliens who could boil the water if we pray to them, they're not existing. That's what we're saying. We define God like a God who...
Because we have used those definitions.
Just because I prayed to him?
Yeah, because...
Say that again.
Yes, because we've defined that God to be something that responds and does what you ask every time you pray.
Okay, but that's not my claim about the God. That's not my definition.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Exactly. So we need to find a falsifiable claim about yours. Here's the thing. When you bounce it back that way, the funny thing is, and I know I missed this on an episode a couple of weeks ago, we all have a burden of proof. We all have a burden of proof for the things that we believe. The thing is,
clearly,
there's a reason why we believe that the earth is round, because we have met our burden of proof. There's a reason why we believe a lot of the things that we do about scientifically understood phenomena, because they have met their burden of proof. Has your God belief met its burden of proof? No. So quit trying to bounce it back as if that validates yours. Where is your burden of proof? How can you falsify your claim? Tell me something about your God that I can test.
Well, I don't know how historically I can get here because I'm not one, and I don't know how 100% sure they are. But I know that Romans sent people to Israel to verify the claims about a prophet who bring trouble to the region, exactly in the time of when we suppose Jesus Christ existed. So there is a little bit of proof that someone but someone who created big rumors in that time existed. So I cannot bring a proof about my God because it's a faith, and I don't know if he really exists. I believe in him, but just that is why it's called faith and not science.
Well, and that's why faith is useless. Catanin, that's why faith is useless. The example that you gave is fantastic. You just didn't take it to its conclusion. So let me give you an example. Do you know the story of Balaam and his donkey? Right? When the donkey turned and spoke. Do you know that story? I can give you a different one if you'd like.
I don't think I know that one.
Okay, cool. How about the demon legion being cast into the pigs that ran off the cliff?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Oh, cool. Let's go with that. Do pigs exist?
Yes.
So there we go. You can't prove. I mean, obviously pigs exist. So that means that the story about a demon getting cast into the pigs. Well, obviously, I mean, look at the pigs. Here's the thing: is there are a lot of things that are in the Bible that do correspond to reality. That does not mean that we should accept the supernatural claims made therein. If you point towards something that actually happened, I will follow you there. The problem comes when people make supernatural claims because those have not been substantiated.
I understand totally what you said. And
Cool.
That's the argument I have with my friends. Because I cannot bring the evidence that God exists. They don't believe in God. And I understand why people are believing that, I don't know how to say, is kind of a faith in itself. And I understand the concept of burden of proof. If I say something, I need to prove it, not you to prove that it doesn't exist. Perfectly understood that. I just say that the story of God with her problems, big problems in many spots, is still a very useful story. And it's so useful and so important and so successful that it's kind of in itself true just because of that. But I understand your argument, and I don't think we're going to agree that the God doesn't exist. But I perfectly understand your reasoning, and I understand why you have the claim from me to prove what I'm saying because it's perfectly normal.
I think I just challenge you.
Fake.
Well, I just want to challenge you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I want to challenge you to really think about the concept of the noble lie and call back. Because the idea that something should be accepted as true because it's useful can be damaging in bad ways. I don't think we should believe something because it's useful. I think we should believe it because there's evidence for it.
Also, I do just want to push back a little bit on this idea that it has been successful and useful. The Christian religion, and to lesser extents globally, other Abrahamic religions, have dominated and basically imposed themselves on other religions and on societies that maybe didn't function with a religion. And so when we say, well, look at how successful these countries, like the world is with this religion, we don't have anything to compare it to. We don't know if we have flourished despite it, maybe without the prevalence of the Christian faith.
Well, we know what happened before Christianity, and it wasn't very good from a morality standpoint.
Yeah, so my roommate, Holy Kool-Aid, did 3 videos on this where they compiled a fuck ton of information that will help you get there. Check out Holy Kool-Aid because on that channel, he has actually done an entire, a trilogy of videos on whether or not...
Basically, a statistical survey.
Yeah, using tons of different metrics on whether or not believing in God has benefited society, because you can actually show down the whole list that being religious has a negative correlation, if any. But check it out. Give us a call back. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, great call. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
You too. We got to start taking these rapid fire.
All right.
Why? Kirk in Wisconsin.
Why did you call in so late, Kirk?
Why?
Oh, hello there. How are you guys doing?
Hey, we're bummed that you took so long to call in. We would have spent more time with you if you'd have called in earlier.
Yeah, I apologize. I was just sitting there listening to the guys, and was a little hesitant to call in. But I apologize. I should call in sooner next time. I completely totally agree.
You had an interesting statement in the comments. What I have in the comments is it says, "Do you agree with this statement? I cannot by my own reason or strength believe in Jesus Christ."
Yeah. I was wondering what your guys' thoughts was on that.
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming when you mean elaborate, do you mean by like defining terms on like what I mean, like each of the words?
You do watch the show, don't you, Kirk?
Yeah, essentially, if we start diving in, we could dive in several different directions that don't have anything to do with why you called in. It's when that caller called in to talk about free will, we wound up talking about racism because that actually is related, but it might not be what the person called in about.
Right.
So, what direction do you want to go with this? How can we, cater this conversation and tailor it to what you want to talk about?
Right. No, I got you. So I'm essentially calling in to say that, you get a lot of different, because I'm a Lutheran. I'm sure if you're familiar with the Lutherans at all, the monk that got pissed off at the Catholics and pounded on the door in Wittenberg and kind of started that whole Reformation over there in Europe.
I've actually been to Wittenberg and stood at the door where Martin Luther posted the 95 Theses. Mm-hmm. I've actually been to his cell.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Oh, wow. I hope to go there at some point once this whole virus and everything goes away. But
it is pretty cool. And the funny thing is they point at a door that have the 95 Theses like beautifully engraved, and they go, "That is the door." And I'm like, I bet you that's not the door, because I don't think the 95 Theses were there when he posted them. It's funny.
Yeah, like they probably just found some door like off of some other church that looked a lot better, and then they posted it on there, type of a thing, because they wanted it to look better.
And it does. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And maybe the hinges are the same. Maybe parts of it. I don't know. But it's just funny that people point at this thing that was obviously made after the fact. Yeah.
All right.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I got us way off topic.
Well, no. That's completely fine. Lutherans sometimes do that with when they call in. But with it seems as though with like a lot of sects of Christianity, whether you take like I'm assuming you guys are familiar with John Calvin and Calvinism and his like double predestination stance and things, and then you get like there's like the non-denominational, like some more like fundamental Baptists where like I made a decision for Christ type.
That was my background right there.
Individual salvation by faith, not through works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where you yourself have to personally accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and like you're the final decision maker on it, type of a thing.
Yeah.
Well, we as Lutherans don't believe in either of those in their entirities because it's. Excuse me. I wasn't expecting to get on today with the limited time that we have, but
Kirk, you know what? If you think that the limited, because we do have 4 other callers on the line and about 10 minutes that we want to shoot through them, if you think that it would do more justice to the conversation to call in next week, then that's absolutely understandable. And actually, it could be like a teaser for the people who are watching. Crap! Now I gotta watch for Kirk next week. You want to do that?
Oh yeah. I would totally be down for that, because this is it's kind of an interesting topic on what Lutherans believe and how we kind of differ from a lot of the other sects of Christianity out there. With Calvinism on one side and Arminianism or non-denominationalists on the other side.
So here's the deal.
Yeah.
Talk Heathen is at 1 p.m. Central. Call in before the show starts.
Yes.
And hang out on the line. And if you call in late, I will have you know that we will give you shit forever.
Well, I would totally deserve it. I mean, Martin Luther gave a lot of, pardon my cussing, gave a lot of shit to people back then. So you totally can give give crap to me as well.
You know what? Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of vulgarity in this call, but I'm sure we're fine. Take care, Kirk. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, I apologize.
No worries. Call in next week. We look forward to talking with you.
Just a call back to earlier. But anyway, bye. I was going to give him more shit, and I realized, okay, that's enough. That's enough. All right. So we'll shoot through these next ones?
Sounds good. Let's go.
Cool. Nick in Ohio. I know we don't have a lot of time. Thank you for waiting. What did you want to... Oh.
Actually, hit the talk button would help.
Thank you.
Nick in Ohio. What would you like to talk about today?
Nick. Going once. Nick going twice. We are returning Nick to the queue. Laura in Arizona. You're talking to Eric and V. What would you like to talk about?
Oh, Laura, you called Truth Wanted before, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I was wondering if Eric would remember me.
I remember you.
You're the Tulpa person.
Hey. Yes. I am Laura the Tulpamancer.
That is... Okay, for people who don't watch Truth Wanted, please check out Truth Wanted, and you can learn more about Laura. And
yeah, Laura's called in twice. I believe you got to talk with Jamie and Eric about tulpas.
Yes.
And now me. So yeah, you got the trifecta there.
But for people who haven't caught those episodes, what is a tulpa?
I can face against the sorry, what was the question?
It's okay. For people who want to know, what the hell is a tulpa?
It's kind of hard to describe. The first definition I ever heard was an advanced imaginary friend. The point of a tulpa is to be an imaginary friend, but they're supposed to have like their own thoughts and feelings about things that are separate from your own. That's the whole point. And that they can like talk and do things on their own without you as a person actually like making them do stuff.
I'm jumping out of my skin, and I know that you haven't had the opportunity, so please, V. Otherwise, I'll steamroll it.
All right. So, Laura, I have a question. Can other people interact with an individual's tulpa? So say you had a tulpa, and I know you do because I've listened to the other calls. Can other people interact with that tulpa in a way that they can determine whether or not it exists?
Not exactly, at least not in the way that I understand tulpas.
Okay.
The only way that a tulpa can interact with the like actual real world is through the host's senses. So like my tulpa, Russell, the only way that he would be able to see the real world is through my eyes. The only way that he can hear things is through my ears.
Okay, and so you're using the term the real world. Is there an unreal world? What is the alternative that the tulpa is interacting with?
For lack of a better term, the term of the mental plane. Just whatever imaginary stuff you can make up in your mind.
Okay, so there's the imaginary world and the real world, and the tulpas exist in the imaginary world and can interact with the real world through you, the host.
Yes.
Okay, so if something exists purely in the imaginary world, wouldn't we call it imaginary and there by definition not real?
Yeah, I guess you can say that. It's as real as anything else that goes on in your brain. Okay,
well, can we scan for it? If it's as real as anything else, I'm assuming like, lighting up at some a part of your brain lighting up when you recognize someone's face or you hear a joke or you feel sad. You can scan those things on like an MRI type thing. Can you do the same with can you determine where an imaginary friend lives in your brain?
I would assume so. I actually thought about that while I was on hold, but I actually haven't looked at... Okay, I'll say this first. I usually work graveyard, so I wasn't planning on being awake while the stream was live.
Okay. I think for me, at this point, you have given me a concept. You've given me a concept right here, and it's fascinating. And as somebody who loves fantasy and loves sci-fi, like I can buy into this in an imaginary sense and be like, cool, that's an awesome imaginary thing. But if you're going to make any kind of case that this is somehow interacting with or used as an explanation for anything in the real world, I need to see some falsifiable proof, and I bet you anything that there are people who have tried to detect these with MRIs. So if you don't know the answer to that, that's something I would say might further this conversation a little bit. So I'd suggest doing some research in that direction.
See,
Unfortunately, that in particular is actually a huge problem in the tulpa community. It's so hard to actually find like literal evidence that tulpas exist.
Is that maybe a good sign that they don't? If the entire community is either averse to or just hasn't done research into proving if they exist through, the kinds of falsifiable evidence we'd need, why do you take their word for it?
Unfortunately, all I have to go on is personal experience at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know is not the greatest of evidence.
Well, not only that, but I don't think somebody else's personal experience, as described by them, would convince you of anything. Can I ask you 2 questions on top of that, just to add to the homework that Vi was giving? One of them is, can a mind exist outside of a body?
No.
Okay, so you're saying tulpas don't have minds?
No, they just share my brain. The brain matter in my skull is shared by myself and my tulpa.
Okay, so that means it only exists inside of you. Like, it cannot exist outside of your brain.
Yes.
Okay, so is there any difference between somebody who believes in tulpas and someone who's schizophrenic?
That is also a really big problem in the tulpa community. Where a lot of people who don't really understand it have accused us of basically making ourselves schizophrenic. From what I know, let's see if I can say this right. So schizophrenia in particular has actual physical manifestations in the brain. I've seen some brain scans of it. It actually looks like large pockets in the brain where there's not brain matter. There's whatever juices are in the brain that keep you from knocking your brain against your skull.
So I think, sorry, I have somewhere I want to go with this, but I do want to leave you guys to finish out your conversation.
I'll be quick, and I know we have a couple of other callers.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to really get in there with is I think that the idea of tulpas, especially when applied to mental health, can be very detrimental to someone's diagnosis and recovery. And because of that, I think that the idea of tulpas is something that really needs to be drilled down on, because it's no longer just about, what makes you feel good, because it can have a very detrimental impact on the real world.
Right. I have a friend who has dissociative identity disorder, DID, and she has alters.
That's another thing that gets pulled into the tulpa community as well, which
right. And I don't think you can make yourself schizophrenic. You can't make yourself have DID. That is a neurological condition that you either acquire through an accident or genetically. But these are the concern here is less about you, Laura, because I have no reason not to trust that you are perceiving your experiences in a way that makes sense to you. But my concern is that talking about tulpas as something that is beneficial or an explanation for an experience that you are sharing your brain with more than one personality, with an alter or multiple alters, could stop people from getting the counseling and the help that they need. And so I think it's an interesting conversation, and I would love to continue this another time. But I think I need to be a responsible host for a minute and say that as somebody talking about this, definitely if you are feeling like that is something that you are dealing with, that's a good sign that you need to go get checked out by a psychiatrist, I'd say.
If anything, to make sure that there's not a serious condition.
Yeah.
That from what I understand, and again, layman's perspective, Things like DID or multiple personalities, those are generally caused by some kind of traumatic experience, whereas a tulpa is generally created over a long period of time, and it's created.
Laura,
there's
can you
a
do
word
me
I
a
want.
favor?
Gosh dang it! They're created on purpose. That's what it was.
So Laura, please call us next week because Dr. Daryl Ray will be guesting.
Oh,
and I think
that's
that
right.
Daryl has a professional experience that I think could benefit this conversation a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Call us next week. Call us early, and love to see that conversation had.
I don't know if I'm going to be awake at that point, though. Like I said, I usually work graveyards. I'm usually dead.
Please,
Well, if you
try.
are awake, we will have somebody who is an actual doctor of psychology, and I believe he's
I've heard of Daryl Ray.
Yeah, so we will have someone on next week who can better speak
What I
to
really
that.
wanted to talk about was how the tulpa creating process is very, very similar to a lot of like prayer processes and rituals that's where people will be talking to God or Jesus or whoever it is that they're praying to. And I just thought that part was interesting to me, and that's what I wanted to bring up today, but I guess we don't have time for that.
No worries, but I appreciate it, and it is a fun conversation to have, and I think that there are some really important concepts to be pointed out there. But thank you for calling, and I really hope you can call next
Yeah, it was nice to actually meet you, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we gotta shoot on through.
Gotta shoot through
John
these last ones.
in Colorado.
Yep, click on the thing.
I'm trying. John in Colorado, you're live with Eric and V. Hey.
Hi. Hey, I'm a big fan. Listen to every single episode. I usually listen to on podcasting. Anyway, I just I don't know if what the screener kind of.
It says the sacrifice of Jesus doesn't qualify as an atonement sacrifice according to Jewish law.
Yeah. Wow. Great.
Okay.
If I could, I know we have limited time, but if you can kind of put your Christian apology hats on and approach my call as if I want you to tear my argument down from a Christian point of view.
I think
if you could.
You know what? Let's pop you back on hold and let's have that conversation in the Discord.
I think that's good. Also, I have some resources for you for people who actually do know a lot more about Jewish law and Jewish culture. That probably would be better.
Well, can I just give a real quick snapshot, really super quick?
Sure.
Okay, so bottom line, when a thing was sacrificed for a specific reason, it had to be done for that reason, for atonement or for whatever you were doing, bringing it to be sacrificed for. Jesus, if you read the Gospels, was not sacrificed for forgiveness of sins. He was sacrificed for whatever it was, blasphemy or treason. So you don't get to just count that as an atonement sin. And also, they had the animal had to be blemish-free, injury-free, which clearly he was not. And it also had to be a female. And it also had to be done in the temple by a priest. And the Christian religion is nothing if not based on Christianity. I mean, is nothing if not based on Judaism. So none of the things that would qualify a sacrifice to count, Jesus did not fulfill a single one of them. So if I'm right, the whole foundation of Christianity is gone, or I'm making a huge mistake and don't know what I'm talking about.
To people who are that helps, awesome. It is very, very niche, and I would tell you with my apologist hat on, Jesus came to fulfill the law, and that's what I would imagine is, that's a Mosaic law, and because Jesus eliminated the Mosaic laws, it doesn't count.
Well, I think this is actually, some of them I can imagine getting pushback. So like God, the sacrifice had to be sacrificed for a specific reason. Well, it was God's reason. That was the reason that God had in his head. So maybe not that one, but I do like the other more specific ones, because this is where a lot of prophecy and a lot of these things kind of fall down, is when you get into specifics. Oh, it had to be female. Oh, it had to be blemish free and not injured. And Jesus had been whipped a whole bunch beforehand. So those, I think, could at least begin the process of a question if you're bringing to theist. So I would say maybe not the first one. That first bit, even though we might agree, could easily be like dismissed as, well, it was God's reason. But I think if you were to bring the blemishes and bring the it being female, those two, I think you'd get some very interesting answers, and you'd see how the circular logic kind of starts circling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if somebody believes this stuff, please call in next week, because we really don't want to straw man people's religion. But if you think that is a good or accurate representation of what you believe, please call in.
That was my dad's whole bag when he was a non-denominational self-proclaimed pastor. Like this would have gotten his goat. No pun intended.
So if they'll get your goat, call in. Sean, thank you for calling in, man. Take care.
Okay, can I do one more?
Sorry about that.
We don't. Frank in Belgium is a Catholic teacher who wants to ask, how can he shut up to his students about how poisonous religion is? Hi, Frank. You there?
Hey, hello. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. This is a conversation that needs a community.
Yeah.
There are a lot of specifics, and I would not want to give you advice that would be detrimental to what's going on in your life or put your job in trouble. But that said, and also you don't live in the country that I'm in, and because of that, I don't know what the laws are and rules around it, but I suggest you reach out to our community because they can help. We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord, we have a Reddit, we have a presence. Well, we have presence on Twitter, but yeah, check out our multiple communities, because there are a lot of people who can actually go into those details and help. But the fact that you are in that position, we're sending you love, man.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. And
I think.
Yeah, we'll do the next one off air.
Yeah, let's just take the next one off air.
Okay.
Just because we wanna wrap up.
We do. We want to go to Discord really bad.
Right. I would say that I had an experience in undergrad where everybody who was teaching there had to be Christian, had to be, follow certain rules, follow certain creeds, and not deviate from that. And there were still a couple of professors who, looking back, put me in touch with some things that I was like, oh, that was intentional. Oh, that flew under the radar, but that definitely influenced me. My one professor would show us George Carlin skits as an example of like media, but he'd be like, put up the ones about religion, or another one would talk about how the Bible was written canonically and like how all the books were put together, super without a lot of bias. Obviously, God was still real for him, but like the way that he presented it made me think about, oh, this wasn't just handed down from the heavens. This was put together by people, and there were little hints here and there. You are not responsible for saving these kids necessarily, but if you did want to drop hints here and there, or at least be an unbiased source they could come to for advice or to vent, or for life experience, whatever, that's at least in the US would certainly be within your wheelhouse. So
I should not have dropped that call. Sorry about that. that was incredibly beneficial. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's throw some love rings. 1, 2, 3. All right. So first and foremost, this is a collaborative effort. We could not do this without our crew. So let's move over to the crew cam and say thank you to our incredible crew who's working hard behind the scenes. And I know I say this every week, but it's super, super true.
Look at that hardworking cat.
We would not be able to do this without you. Thank you. Thank you for your hard work. You were here before we got here, and you'll be here after we leave, putting together the clips, doing the thumbnails, making sure that the podcast is out. Yeah. And also our volunteers who are actively right now, if you're a mod in the live chat, thank you. If you are writing the description for the videos and for the clips, thank you. If you're modding on any of our social media, thank you. This is a community, and we're so glad that you're a part of it.
Yes.
Whether you believe or not.
If you are going to work and making this country run while it is in the middle of a pandemic, we appreciate you. We salute you. Keep on doing your job, and we'll keep doing ours. And wear a mask and vote. Vote and wear a mask, preferably at the same time.
Absolutely. To those of you who don't believe, this is your community. We're building it together, and it is freaking fantastic. And if you don't feel like this is your community, we encourage you to create one that you do feel like. The idea that there's this exclusive nature to this atheist movement,
The inner circle,
is ridiculous. I mean, I've seen plenty of comments who are like, I can't stand Eric. His voice is annoying. His face is annoying. His hair is annoying. I deeply encourage you to find hosts that you do like, and be active where that is. I mean, it's so important, especially during this pandemic, that we're finding those communities and creating those places where we can feel safe and where we can make friends and build that together. So you absolutely should. And yeah, to those of you who do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. See you next week.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?
No, you're done.